Hey everybody, the purpose of this video is to give you an update of what is happening around the homestead while we're waiting to save up and receive some donations for getting a new computer so that we can edit videos the way that we used to. However, I do want to mention something about that. That is my most thumbs down video ever by asking for donations, and I respect that. I understand that not a lot of people like when somebody says, hey, would you donate money towards something? Or maybe if they hear that, they don't mind it, but they don't like what the donation was being asked for. And I can understand that. I'm the kind of guy that when I hear the public radio go on their week-long donation cycle, I get tired of it. And I'll spend about 5 minutes on there and say, okay, I'm really tired of hearing about donations, and I'll flip a channel. So interestingly enough, on the flip side of that, it received the most likes ever. So apparently it's a very polarizing subject. If you're interested in helping us get back to being able to edit using a laptop rather than a cell phone, there'll be a little link on the show more button down below, and I'll put a little link here on the video when I have an opportunity to do so. That said, let's show you what's going on around the homestead. Okay, so can you tell what this project is? If you can piece that together, then good for you. If you cannot, then I'm going to reference you over to Rob's channel and tell you to go look at a couple of his most recent videos. It's not too far back in his current offerings where he revisited a automatic chicken feeder. So head over there and you'll see what I'm going to do with all of this. The how-to video will follow later when I can edit everything together with close-up pictures and things like I like. We are also working on trying to build our own compost. We fired up the chipper for the first time this season. I was quite impressed with how easily it fired back up. The kids knocked some of the dust and cobwebs off for me, and I came out and with just a couple cranks, it started right up. So if you live in the USA and you like supporting USA stuff, I'm still a good fan of the McKissick brand. And of course they're using, I say I'm a fan of their brand. The machine itself holds up. It's a Briggs & Stratton motor, so I guess that's what gets credit for cranking up. But the machine doing the chipping was also still working quite fine. You can see I've collected, this was my green pile, but then I ran into a problem and didn't have enough of my manure pile, and so my green pile turned into my brown pile. Now there's good news with this. There's a lady a mile down the road who raises goats. She's part of the 4-H and a whole bunch of other things that would take a while to explain. But either way, I knocked on her door and introduced myself and said, I'll get straight to the point, I want your goat poop. And she was more than happy to oblige. And I just had that conversation yesterday. So this afternoon, I've got some things to do this morning, but I'll be driving the tractor a mile down the road and just taking it one bucket load at a time. She's going to let me take whatever I want without any concerns or issues, no barter or money or anything like that, just helping her get it off of her hands. So, still would be nice to eventually be able to invest in a truck, but that's just something that's not a note that I'm willing to pick up right now. So, that's how we're going to manage getting some more poop for the compost, and then I have got plenty of green everywhere still. And even through the winter I'll have some green, so not too worried about that. The garden is has been cleaned out significantly. You may have noticed in that brown pile there, a lot of that was the marigolds that were in here. I cut them back drastically, and the problem I'm currently having with this patch of ground is inconsistent watering. And I have learned a lesson about buying the cheap version of the soaker hoses. And I won't be making that mistake next year. I'll be investing in the true soaker hose. And to differentiate between the two for your benefit, the cheap one I'm speaking about is like a fabric that is sewn together. and the real stuff is I believe a rubber type material. So that might maybe help you figure it out. I fell to the trap in the store where it was, you know, something like 10 bucks for 100 feet of the fabric or 10 bucks for 25 feet of the rubber, and I gave up on it, and that was a mistake. So let's see here. We've still got, here it is, the end of September, and I've got this crazy watermelon still trying to put a couple melons on the vine. This is a small melon variety, but those are still only about a quarter of the size they need to get to, so we'll just have to wait and see. The Satsumas are putting on, or well, of course it's been put on. They're ripening, so I'm excited for that. It's the one citrus that's really doing well. We also have a lemon tree here that's doing pretty well. I believe that's Lisbon lemon, a true lemon. And we also have kumquats. And I've been pretty happy with these. I haven't, none of them have ripened yet for me to be able to enjoy one, but I've been happy with how they're putting on fruit. So we'll just have to see how that goes. And then there's this undernourished lime tree here has got one lime on it that I won't bother trying to find for you while you're live on video. So all of these plants that are in pots here, all these trees and bushes and shrubs that are in pots, are going to go into a swale system, and I say all of them, probably just the majority of them, on the side of the house near where the grape arbor is, and I'll point that out to you in just a minute. So over the winter, that's going to be a project, is to dig that out and get these planted when they're dormant, and then let them thrive like crazy next spring. And I really do think they'll thrive, and I can show you why if I remember to take you back there to the fig. You remember I showed you that tree growing secret? Well, that darn fig has just exploded here in the last month of summer. So I'm pretty impressed with how I think the swales are going to work in my zone. This is the Carolina Reaper. It's putting on some pretty bountiful amounts of fruit in there. I don't think I can give you a good angle, and I plucked all the ripe ones just a day ago. So, but really, I'm saving seed to grow more of this to make spray to try to keep pests off of plants. That's the only reason I can see for even growing such a darn spicy pepper. I don't know what other use it has. The ghost peppers, you can see some color down inside of there. They're putting out a good bit. My son still wants to have ghost peppers in his hot sauce when we get around to making him a homemade hot sauce. I think he's crazy. You see the okra, I forget which group or video or someplace I saw, somebody was asking about cutting leaves on okra. And I apologize for forgetting who that was, because I'm pretty sure it was one of my close gardening friends. But moral of the story is this. Of course, you can see mine. The grasshoppers have gone to town on it here in the last month. But the majority of the damage was done by yours truly. I go through here about every 2 weeks and cut off nearly a quarter of the leaves. And it has just gone nuts. I mean, you can see the seed pods. I'm letting this go to seed. I've got more okra than I desire to eat, and no current way to really get rid of it. So, but interesting to me, I measured this a while back, and it's 2.5 inches across. That is a humongous tree of an okra. I wonder if, and if I were to guess, 7 feet tall. And this is a Clemson spineless. A lot of other peppers have started to come back. We've got some like the golden nugget, what appears to be some, like right here, that's, I believe that's the bell pepper. If y'all don't remember the labels that I use these, here's one that I still haven't harvested back up. You see these little white plastic labels? If you see those running hide, they're worthless. So like I knew what that was when I planted it, but now all I know is that it's a solid white strip of plastic. The permanent marker was not permanent on that surface, so don't use those. I decided to kind of trial something. I put some chickens in here and see how long it would take for 4 chickens to scratch up this amount of space, and I'm not very impressed. I'm just not, but we'll see. This was just as grown up as that, so maybe I should be giving them a bit of a break. They've been in there almost 2 weeks, so anyway, not something I'm super excited about. Let's see here. You remember the what is it about? Weren't sure whether we had a squash here, or then we found out it was a cantaloupe. We got a little more cantaloupe getting put on the vine here. Alright, so let me pause the video here. We'll go over to the grape arbor and I'll show you the other project that's been happening. Alright, so here we are over at the grape arbor. And the most grapes that we got was about maybe 2 or 3 fistfuls of muscadines. None of the table grapes really came out, but things are improving with that. I filmed a pretty good update on that, and when we can edit the videos together, I'll share that with you. But suffice to say, they're growing quite well, and there's about 3 vines that are to the point where we've got to keep them trimmed back. And this is just year 1 growth, and next year it'll fill in, and then the year after that I'll start running my butt off every few days just trying to keep up with it. So far I'm pretty impressed with how well it's doing. The real big project over here was getting the transplants in for the fall crop, and since my composting didn't happen in the time frame I wanted it to happen in, I purchased some different organic materials and mixed them together and laid them out in a strip. Here's just the whole walkway between, that's the house on the left and the grape arbor on the right, with a little bit of a straw walking path down the middle, and then the plantings on the right. Eventually I'll put some plantings on this side as well. We fired up the wood chipper here to provide some mulch on top of this, to try to keep moisture in, and these plants are just loving this location. These are all, well, you saw the previous planting videos. I'll spare you. If you don't know the varieties, go back and look for the autumn fall seeding video, and you can get all the details there. But they've just really taken off since putting them inside of the soil here. So I'm pretty happy with that. And then over here, on the original plantings that are drastically getting taken over by grass. And somebody asked me at a little homesteading fair I taught at what I would do, permaculture speaking, about Bermuda grass. And it's something I'm going to have to think a little bit more on, but I think what comes to me naturally is to say that you just have to take up the space. Something has to be there. If you don't want grass there, then you need to take up the space, because the Bermuda grass is just going to poke through mulch. Even if you put down cardboard, it's going to find a way through. But if you can take up the space root-wise and make it so that the plant really has nowhere to go, I think that's the answer. That's what instinct tells me, but I might learn better as I gain experience on that. Some things are coming up here that we didn't know we planted or don't remember that we planted, so that's kind of fun. You may see this little tiny pinkish flower in the mix of this toothache plant. It's a zinnia. Don't remember putting that there. And then just behind it to the right here is some rosemary. I don't remember planting that there. So that's kind of interesting. And the cucumbers that we've planted here are starting to come in for a fall crop. These are just a straight 8 variety. And they are about 6.5 foot up the trellis as well. So that's pretty fun. some peppers coming in over here. I have a sneaking suspicion with my 11-year-old that I'm going to become a little bit more of a connoisseur of pepper varieties over the next couple years than I would care to be. I don't like them, but he does, so I'm going to grow them for him. The comfrey is doing really well. It's been chopped back 3 times, which is why it doesn't look very tall. I just keep cutting it back and either adding it to the compost pile I showed you earlier or feeding it to the chickens. One or the other, whatever suits my fancy that day. This area has been receiving nitrogen from the legumes that we're growing over here, plucking off the pods, feeding those to chickens or eating them ourselves. Again, whatever the fancy suits that day, and things like that. So there hasn't been, between the comfrey and the nitrogen fixing legumes, that's been everything that's happened over here. And the system's on a soaker hose, so that goes off once a day in the morning, and that's it. And I've been pretty impressed by the growth that we've received, and I'll definitely want to do a lot more planting over here. So I mentioned earlier a swale. Forgive the trash in the yard that I didn't think to pick up ahead of time, but that right there, that dead looking tree, is a black walnut, and I think I'm going to take that down because of course it has oh goodness, I lost the word. Anyway, it's not good to plant around black walnut. But if I can take that out and realize the fact that it's going to take a while for the roots to decompose and not be of a inhibitor to other plants, moral of the story is I want to put in a swale probably just past where you can see this row of tall grass starting up, and all the way into this forest system. And there's a bunch of reasons for it that I'll explain why I think that's a good location when we get a little bit later, but I think you can probably pick up on some of the fact that there's right where that half deflated ball is, and my watering can that a child is playing with is a bit of a ravine, and almost all of the front yard water comes down this way, and about 75 feet into the woods till it hits a creek and then off. And so that would be about halfway between my house and the creek, and I think it'd be a benefit area. So alright, let's move on to something else. This is going to be a long one. Alright, let's talk chicken. First off, while we're over here, you can see the fig tree. You see that tallest branch to the right? We've got this coop pretty well boxed up, and it's kind of a bit of a difficulty to get in there, so forgive me for not walking closer. But that tallest, I don't know, branch or trunk on the right, when I shot that tree growing secret video, was 1/3 of the height. So you might want to go back and watch that and see it for yourself. But here in 2 months or less, it's now the tallest one. So I'm pretty excited with how well that's growing. And some people were asking, my thought is this was really a trial, and my thought is for it to provide some extra shade for the birds, and with full expectation that the birds will eat the figs. Yeah, I wasn't trying to put a fig tree in a chicken run with the expectation that I'm going to go in there every day and collect figs. I expect the birds to get the figs. So a little bit of explanation about the project for the bird feeder. I have 30-week-old hens here that are not laying eggs, and I'll bring you over into the coop side of this and show you. We, in the interest of repurposing and saving some funds, we reused our rabbit hutches that we're not currently using, or because we only have 2 rabbits, we had some extra hutches. And Jennifer came in, punched in some extra doors and a little divider. And so each of these, you can see this, there's a, I apologize for the darkness, it's early in the morning here. But this nest box and this nest box used to be 1 unit for a rabbit. And so now, instead of 3 rabbit units, we have 6 chicken units, which I put up on a bit of a riser. and 30 weeks old hens and no eggs. And the only thing I think is the problem is inconsistent feeding. I've been thinking about it a lot. We had a mild summer. We get plenty of light. They have plenty of fresh water. There's no diseases or infestations to speak of. I think the problem is inconsistent feeding. Sometimes I'll come out here in the morning and feed. Sometimes I'll get in a rush and have to ask my 11-year-old son to do it. Sometimes it'll get forgotten, and so forth. So that's what the automatic feeder is going to accomplish. We're going to try to see if we can get egg production by providing more reliable food source. So wish me luck on that. Alright everybody, I hope you enjoyed that long tour and kind of catch you up with what's going on the property for the 2 weeks that we've kind of been in the dark here. If you are interested in helping us get back to editing videos on a laptop, we do appreciate your consideration. There is a link below in the See More description box. And any denomination you're comfortable with, we greatly appreciate your consideration on that. But what if you're not, but you still want to support us? You're not comfortable making a monetary donation, but you still like what we're doing here and you want to help us out. What could you do? The absolute best thing you could do is share our content. Share a video that you like on our YouTube channel. You can go to a little search box and look up whatever you want. If you're interested in gardening in containers, you want to learn more about a certain gardening method that we've talked about, more about permaculture, or you just like the garden tours, DIY duck feeders, and all those different kind of things. You could just search for something that interests you specifically that you'd like to share with your friends. And sharing our videos gets us more views, and more views means that YouTube will recommend our channel to more people as well. So that's probably the best thing that you could do to help us if you weren't looking to make an actual monetary donation. So another question that was brought up was, Jared, you're a monetized YouTube channel. We see ads when we watch your videos, and yet you're also asking us for money. What's that about? And the explanation is fairly detailed, so I'm going to just skim over it for the sake of brevity. YouTube pays people per thousands of ad impressions. So let's say you had 1,000 videos watched, maybe 750 of those an ad was displayed on, and then YouTube pays you a certain dollar amount per thousands of views, or per 1,000 views. And right now for us, that's averaging anywhere from $3 to $4 per 1,000 views, okay, or per 1,000 monetized views. It gets very complicated. Suffice to say, if we were to try to squirrel away every penny that YouTube pays us each month, we're still looking at 8 to 10 months to try to save up the money that we need to purchase the video, to purchase the laptop that we would use to make videos. So that's why we decided that we would ask for some help and see if people would help us get there a little more quickly than waiting 8 to 10 months. So that's kind of the story behind that. You could also help us by just watching more of our videos yourself. You could help us by going to jandjacres.net and reviewing some of our blogs there. Our blog is also monetized. There's ads on the sidebar and in the middle of some of the posts. And just by you having that displayed to you, Google gives us a few pennies per thousands of views. So that would help as well. But again, I'll say the biggest help that you can be is just sharing our content, getting the word out there so that more people can become a part of our community here. So thank you all for tolerating me while we go through this little fundraising period and this little awkwardness of doing videos with the cell phone, and look forward to getting back to being able to provide you some good some like DIY kind of videos where there's up close pictures of each individual step and all that kind of stuff along the way. So I should mention while we're here that I have been up in Starkville, Mississippi last weekend teaching a permaculture awareness course. It was just a little 30-minute class, part of the Mississippi Homesteading Fair there. And I'll be doing the same class again here in Meridian, Mississippi next month as a part of the Go Green Meridians monthly meeting. So trying to get some permaculture awareness out there as best as possible. I'm also working with Wayne Metter over at A World for Change, and going to help him and a friend of his do a permaculture site design in Alabama at their property. So keep an eye out for that. And I'm also working with the local community gardening folks and setting up a second community garden, a section of which they want to have as a food forest. So I'm helping them design a little food forest for this community garden. So you can be sure we'll update you on that. Once my official printed certificate arrives in the mail, which should be next week if all goes well with the Postal Service, I've got a big announcement about the permaculture side of J&J Acres, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.